Hello and welcome to this third election live show. I'm Sam Peters.
And I'm Michael Marshall Harry. Today we're going to be having the Action and Education candidates here with us in the studio.
We'll be hearing from all the candidates as well as a past section chair. But don't forget,
voting is open, voting is live, so please tell a friend and go vote right now.
Good start. We're going to be starting with Action and an interview with previous section chair Pippa Bainham before moving on to current section chair and rerunner Jodie Evans.
And for Education, we're going to be having Thomas Young and Eleanor Bishop. Now, this is the third Elections live show. We've had the live review, we've had the soapbox. Tonight is going to be fun and games and easy questions. We're going to have a general chat, so stay tuned for all of that.
Michael, you're obviously a postgrad student,
Yes, I am.
So you're going to have a few questions for these education candidates.
Sure, I will. Yeah, because I feel like, the postgrad experience here at Loughborough is, it's part of the entire student experience. So I'm just kind of curious as to what their vision is for the postgrads here on campus.
Sure. And have you had any experience with Action or any of the postgrads you know?
I feel like you're putting me on the spot. But I do know that postgrad students actually do Action.
Yeah.
I've got a friend, shout out to Liam Badley, he does a lot of Action. So I think that Action is something that postgrads do.
Perfect. And so as we're starting with Action, why don't we have a look at some of the highlights from Saturday's soapbox?
Hi, I'm Jodie Evans and I'm rerunning to be this year's Action Chair. I'm just going to skip.
Why didn't it happen last year and why are you having to do it again this year?
So we did some collaborations over the past year, but because of COVID, so many restrictions. And I gave my email address to every single chair of every single AU club and I was like, if you want to do any sort of action, let me know. So trying to find some more animal projects I think would be really good for collaboration.
How do you think you're going to achieve that and what kind of pathways you're going to create to getting that engagement back?
I want to challenge my committee next year. I can try and find a way of getting people who aren't necessarily engaged with LSU at all and work on projects that we can get them engaged with.
I think that COVID and the damage that it's done to engagement, to volunteer numbers will have a long-lasting or even permanent effect on the number of people who get involved in Action.
I don't think so. I think Action's been one of the strongest sections this year for engagement. We've managed to stay on our feet thanks to COVID Community Champions. We got so many students who've never done Action, never.
In this.
I think the dependency for halls is more for our 18 projects, and the reason why we've been so dependent on them this year is our 18 projects are one of the only bunch of projects that can run. Alongside that, Pippa's year we had 31 projects going into 2021. September 2021 we'll have 36 projects. So over COVID year, more people have been coming to us and saying, we want to work with you. We've gone through, we've done the safety checks and we've seen, right, this could be a really amazing project. My plan is to have a mini student volunteer week straight after Freshers in October and have all of our projects run, all the 18s run, and community volunteers can sign up online to which projects they want to do. Maybe do a fine-tooth comb through our projects. There's some projects that were set up 5-10 years ago and they were absolutely amazing when they were set up, and now they're struggling because they don't fit the current time.
So welcome back. Now, earlier on, our very own Sam Peters had a chat with Pippa Bainham, the previous Action exec. So let's have a look at that interview right now. Stay tuned.
So we are joined by previous Action Chair Pippa Bainham. Pippa, thank you for joining us. You were Action Chair 2 years ago, so you sort of know what it's like. You've been keeping up with the Action section. How much change have you seen in it recently?
I think there's been quite a lot of change, but I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a bad thing. I think that that's the whole idea of bringing in a new chair and having new ideas, is that you want the section to change. You want it to develop as the students develop. We have new demographics of students coming in all of the time. So the best thing is for it to change, really.
Okay. And obviously your campaign went ahead in person. How hard do you think it is for the current candidates to, digitally campaign and connect with students?
I think it's incredibly hard because the best part of my campaigning was wearing the campaign t-shirts and having people point at you and talk about you. That was kind of the biggest thing, was that you were the weirdo that was walking around. And I think that kind of, like, it stuck out a lot. And then you could hand people sweets and give them flyers, whereas there's none of that. And I think it must be incredibly difficult because, one, you have to convince people to actually join your page, which, let's be honest, nobody actually wants to do. And then also to vote for you and to watch Soapbox. And the students who aren't involved in general aren't involved enough to know where LSU media is to then watch the Soapbox. So it's kind of a big cycle of, you're going to have a load of issues and probably really low voting numbers this year.
But we do have some students who are rerunning from Exec last year. Is that going to benefit them? And obviously rerunning students, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think I have quite controversial thoughts on this. I personally don't like the idea of students rerunning. I think that really, if you want the exec to represent students, they should be current students. They should be people who are in the student body and know what the students are going through. If I was to rerun, I would have been out of my role for the whole year. You become institutionalized by LSU, and you know all of the KPIs and the engagement indicators, and you stop thinking about what it's like to be a student and what it's like to have exams, deadlines, coursework. And if you're rerunning, then you've forgotten all of that too. So you're not actually as representative. But I mean, I think also fair play to them, because it's a really hard job to do, and to do it for 2 years must be exhausting. So, I mean, as much as I don't think it's the best thing that you can do, I do think that they're brave. They are brave to do it again.
Okay, thanks for that. And obviously, back to action. So a new thing brought in this year, brokerage volunteering. Can you tell us a bit more about what this is?
Okay, so brokerage volunteering is essentially when you piggyback off of another organisation. So they organise your projects for you. So it's kind of things like volunteering in a charity shop. A lot of universities, such as like Manchester and Northumbria, they do brokerage volunteering through charity shops. So you can volunteer for a charity shop and then they log your hours. So in my opinion, it's a complete way to go around doing the hours properly. So the whole idea of a students' union, right, is for the students, by the students. So the students make the project. That's what action is. It's student-led, student-made project. But introducing brokerage means that they're no longer student-led or student-run. So you've just taken away all of that, and you're still rewarding them and giving them hours, when actually you've also lost that student leadership aspect from that project. So it's not something that I agree with, and it's not something that I would have put in with my year. I do understand that obviously in the current climate, it's probably the only way to get volunteering hours, but does that mean it's the right thing to do? I wouldn't say so.
Okay, Pippa Bainham, thank you very much for joining us. It's been lovely to speak to you. We're joined now by Jodie Evans. Jodie, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Jodie.
I'm good, thank you. How are you both?
Yeah, we're doing all right.
We're all right.
Yeah, just had to avoid the rain getting in here, but I suppose that's one of the benefits of not campaigning in person, is avoiding the weather.
Yes, definitely. Being able to just sit in your room at home and just tap away on a computer is a lot nicer weather-wise.
Interesting.
Yeah, how have you found the difference between campaigning in person and campaigning digitally?
So I think stress-wise it's better, and you're less exhausted, because it used to be, right, I need to be in a dining hall for breakfast at 9 a.m. and then you campaign through the whole day, and you come to a night out and it's campaigning until 1 a.m, 2 a.m, and you get back and you have 4 or 5 hours sleep. So it's just a lot when it's in person, although you do get a bit more face-to-face time with students. And I think you connect more with students in person. So I think there's benefits to both, but definitely less stress this year.
Okay, Jodie, I'm sure you missed the breakfast, don't you?
Oh, we still get the breakfast, which is really nice. It's part of our welfare package. So
Yeah,
that's
it's all
really
right.
good.
So last year, Jodie, you ran against someone else, and this year you're kind of running unopposed. Even though we know that we're still running with brother Ron on this side, but so how does it feel running unopposed this year?
So I kind of alluded to it in my post-soapbox interview. I miss having a running mate. I think when you have someone opposing you, you are more motivated and you're constantly going, what are they doing and can I do it better? And there's also the sort of support aspect. So whenever I went through tough times in my campaign, because campaigning's no easy ride, I had Tom there who was going through exactly the same thing and we kind of bonded over it. So I do really miss having a running mate, and I think when it's an opposed position, things are better.
Yeah.
Sure. And I'd just like to bring up something that Pippa mentioned in her interview, the whole concept of brokerage volunteering. Do you mind explaining a bit more why we went down that road this year?
So I'm in agreement with Pippa. I'm not normally one for brokerage projects. I have this year warmed to them because in my mind, brokerage was a way that we could still give student opportunities. It wasn't, oh, I need hours. It was, I want to be able to carry on giving students opportunities. So when we had a couple of different people come to us and say, we've got these projects, would you like to be involved? We ran through them, we ran it through our committee, and from that we got the student voice of saying, yes, we still want these opportunities, and if this is a way we can get them, then let's do it. So that's why I went for it this year. I'm still for keeping its action being as student-led as possible, but if brokerage is a way that we can increase our opportunities and make volunteering more available to different students, then I think that's a really good way that we can go forward.
All right then, Pippa, you talk about opportunities, and I'm a postgrad and I'm a very big fan of opportunities. So what would you say about postgrads getting involved in action projects? I'm aware of a few of my friends like Liam, they get involved in action projects. Do you feel like there's anything more that you can do to reach out to the postgrad community in terms of action?
Yes, definitely. So this year, on the 20th of May, we're hopefully going to have our senior volunteers vote in an action postgraduate officer, which will be someone on the action committee who is solely in charge of involving and trying to improve the engagement for postgraduate students. There are so many of our projects which I know postgrads would love to be involved in, but the timings of the projects can be run.
Yeah.
You guys have such busy days. I worked with a PhD team for 2.5 years of my undergraduate degree, and just seeing how busy they constantly were, it was crazy. Liam's one of my project leaders for Soup Kitchen, and Soup Kitchen suits him so well because it's on a Sunday evening and it's when things are less busy. But obviously he's a sub-warden as well at the same time, so having other senior volunteers and Maddie, his fellow project leader, to be able to alternate with when he has a shift sub-wardening, it makes things a lot better for him. I think focus groups is a really, really strong point that I want to carry on going forward with, and having someone on committee whose sole focus is postgrads, I think will really help improve our engagement there.
Jodie Evans, thank you very much for joining us. It was lovely to hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So on to education. Obviously you're a postgraduate, so you're going to have a slightly different opinion to this than maybe myself and the other undergraduates.
Yeah, the thing about being a postgrad here on campus is that sometimes you often feel left out. Because obviously, you have Loughborough University. It's a bit undergrad focused in some sense. I'm not saying that it's entirely undergrad focused, but in some sense you kind of feel left out. And when you look at the postgrad demographic, it's a different demographic to the undergrad community as well. So yeah, I'm quite curious to see what they have in store for postgrads, to be honest.
Excellent. And I'm not sure if you guys have it in postgrad, but obviously a big part of the education thing is the course reps, and we've heard a lot in both candidates' manifestos about this and about the students that are volunteering in the education section. Does that apply so much to the postgrads?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do have reps across every school. In the university, we do have reps, and I think it trickles down to departments as well. So, and we do have what we call for doctoral students, we do have an overall doctoral president and an assistant president. I think it's a vice president or so, two vice presidents or one. But yeah, we do have that representation. But at the same time, the question for us postgrads is how much is enough, basically, because then we used to have a postgrad EO before.
Right.
So we felt like we had representation on, in the exec, but now we don't have a postgrad EO that sits in the exec. So now we're thinking, okay, we have a doctoral representative. Is that really enough representation? So
I see, because obviously that postgrad exec was absorbed into the education section. So would you maybe like to see a position permanently in education focused around postgrad as opposed to maybe some new committee being formed?
Well, I think at the end of it all boils down to how effective that position is going to be.
Yeah.
I think what we had before was more of a ceremonial position where you had someone that was on the committee or someone that was in exec, but how much power did they really have and how much change could they really effect? So is it enough to just have a position on exec, or is it enough to actually give that position enough authority to do stuff? So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now on to our first education candidate, Elle Bishop.
So I am Elle and I'm running for the Education Executive. I'm running in this election because I feel like I want to be part of the transition from COVID into normal teaching again. I want to have the students represented accurately for that massive transition, which is going to throw a lot of people off, I think. You should vote for me because I'm going to be at Loughborough for a very long time now. I am completely involved in the education. I really want to be passionate about it and stuff, and yes.
All right, guys, welcome back. And now we have Elle Bishop running for the education role. So, Elle, can you hear us right now?
I can hear you, yeah.
All right, nice to have you here with us in the studio.
Thank you, it's nice to
Elle,
meet
how are you feeling over these past few days of campaigning and going forward?
I'm feeling good at the moment. I think I've had quite a rough weekend. I had to stop campaigning for a day, but back up and running, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the week.
So obviously no in-person campaigning, but a lot of digital stuff. Have we got a lot planned to see for your campaign coming up, without giving away any spoilers, of course?
I think you've got, there's a few more exciting things that I've got to post out. Next couple of days are going to get heated, I think. But
all right then. Elle, so this is Michael here. I'm a postgrad, and I'm just wondering, your name is Elle Bishop. I'm just wondering, can you really be a bishop for postgrads this year, given that you're running for the exec position of education? What vision would you say you have for postgrads?
I think over the last couple of weeks, especially during the campaign, I've really found that postgraduates are feeling kind of frustrated.
Yeah.
They're not as represented as they should be, and I've been thinking of my ideas for how to properly integrate you back into the LSU, and I think I really want to have an open forum with the postgrads. I want to have feedback days. I really want to talk to you a lot more about that integration back into the LSU. So, yeah.
Just to stretch that a bit, could you just probably share maybe one or two ideas? Because I'm sure there are a couple of postgrads that are probably watching this right now. They're kind of curious as to what ideas you have. So do you have any ideas you could just spill, somewhere?
So I think one of the main things I've been talking about is bringing in feedback events. Okay. So I'd love to have a feedback event, maybe monthly, even bi-weekly, if I can. And it would be a kind of short-term roll-around. So you'll say what you want changing, and then 2 weeks to a month later, you should be able to see that change activated. I know I wrote on my socials, you can see I've got a personal message to the postgrads, and I've wrote a reply as well, which illustrates a little bit more about what I'm thinking of doing as well.
Okay.
Of course, your opponent, Tom, his manifesto surrounds volunteering within education, whereas yours doesn't mention it so much. Have you got anything to maybe add on that topic now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I do want to do for volunteering is I want to implement a diversity in education volunteer role, where if you read my manifesto, I'm very central around the decolonialisation of the curriculum, and I'd love to have a very specific role where students can go to them and say how they're not feeling represented in our curriculum, where there is mandated checks on the curriculum courses, whether they're being represented properly, and yeah, bring that all together in a specific volunteering role.
Okay, thank you, Elle. We're going to go into a very quick lightning round, okay? Probably what we call rapid fire.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right then. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love your course?
9.
Really? Elle? Nutella or peanut butter?
Neither.
You've got to choose one.
Let's go Nutella.
Okay. Papa John's or naan bread?
Naan bread.
Really? Now, this question, what do you think is the best run course or department here at Loughborough University?
The best run course or department here at Loughborough?
Yeah.
I think that's a difficult one. That's not a rapid fire question. No, I think all of them need to be elevated and changed. I don't think there is one specific one that's ran better than the others. I think they all need to be looked at and properly assessed as to whether they're making their mark and doing what they should be doing as their department and as their school.
Okay.
Thank you. And finally, just one final question. Which Mario Kart character do you use?
I use Toad.
Lovely. Excellent answer. Elle Bishop, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to just take a quick break before going into our next interview with candidate Tom Young. So let's take a look at those soapbox highlights from the weekend.
There we go. It's the third debate of the afternoon. It's the education debate.
My manifesto revolves around inclusivity and representation, where I will ensure every student is heard.
Experience and has really enabled me to gain a holistic insight into the education section.
What are the biggest issues do you think are impacting students' education at Loughborough that you would like to tackle?
A lot of students are going to struggle with engagement. I think it's really important to focus on bridging the gap from our online learning back to being on campus.
What are the biggest issues that you think are impacting students' education at Loughborough that you would like to tackle?
So I think one of the biggest issues affecting students in terms of their education at Loughborough is a lot of it is sort of transparency. I feel like one of the biggest issues is now coming out of this pandemic will be trying to balance that.
Can you provide one way in which you'd improve educational representation here at Loughborough?
To appoint specific volunteers in diversity of education, where it's not just taking students' points of what needs to be done better in just the education or just welfare and diversity, but specifically both those things together.
What's not done right now in making awareness about education on social media, and how do you plan to do this and improve it?
I think at the moment, obviously as far as the education goes and the education executive officer role, I think quite a lot of it can be misunderstood by the students as to actually what it entails.
Do you think LSU should have taken a different stance regarding tuition fees? And if so, what would it be?
I think the stance that we took or LSU took for tuition fees was been an entire year now, and at the start, yes, maybe tuition fees should have remained the same because we could only foresee the pandemic being 3 months long. But at this time, I think retrospectively, there could have been a plan in place that would allow a reimbursement of some parts of the tuition fees.
Naturally, that would come under a sort of feeling and understanding that they're sort of being shortchanged by the university.
So we're about to interview candidate Tom Young, but before that, let's take a look at this quick video that was sent in by his campaign team.
So hello, my name is Thomas Young and I am running to be your next Education Executive Officer. So I am running in this year's Exec Elections because over the past few years I've been very involved in the education section and I've seen it go from strength to strength. Having been an active volunteer myself from a student involvement officer to now this year the student president of the Department of Students Federation, it's time for sort of fresh start and a fresh approach, and especially given all the challenges we face this year, it's important that we have someone elected into this role that is in touch with the students and understands what not only its volunteers need, but also what its students need as well. You know, I've been here for a significant amount of time. I've seen, you know, a whole cycle of new students come in and come out. A vote for me would be a vote for, you know, a sort of shift in priorities when it comes to the education section and its offer. And, you know, this is including, not limited to, department committees, peer support and academic representation. So a vote for me would be a vote for the championing and the empowerment of all of those schemes and the volunteers that fall underneath them.
All right then, so welcome back. And here in the studio we have Thomas Young with us. He's running for the education exec. So welcome, Tom. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear
All
you
good
very
here,
well.
Tom.
Yeah. All right, Tom. So I'm a postgrad, and you know, in some sense, I feel like I'm very postgrad biased in this interview. So I'm just going to crack a joke out. You know, I'm just putting it out there. So your name is Thomas Young. I'm just wondering, how young is your vision for the postgrad community? Is it young enough for just the undergrads, or is it progressive enough for the postgrads as well?
I can't lie, I wasn't expecting when you said you was going to make a joke. That one's no. In all seriousness, though,
forgive me, Tom.
That's okay. You said what you said. It's happened. We'll move on. But no, as far as like the longevity of my vision, it is something that, as far as like trying to implement meaningful change goes, obviously it's not something that's going to happen immediately and straight away. It's not going to happen overnight. It's something that needs to be worked on and enhanced year upon year by each new sabbatical team that comes in. So as far as, well, I've been here for, since 2016, so about 4 or 5 years. So I've got enough experience and insight into kind of what students, researchers, what it is they're actually wanting from the organisation, from LSU. So I feel like my vision, to put it precisely, is very forward thinking and very progressive, just like the organisation should be.
Yeah, but then that sounds quite broad. Is there one thing that you could say that the postgrads could hold on to, that this is what Tom has said, you know, one idea that, you know, we could leave this interview with?
I think like this year's exec have sort of like started and laid out the foundations in terms of the communication channels with postgraduate leaders. So this obviously includes our doctoral research president team, who do an amazing job at sort of spearheading the academic representation and voicing and always being vocal about the needs of doctoral researchers here at Loughborough. As far as one tangible thing goes, I can say that I would be able to promise the postgraduate community is that I don't see how we can, as a university, first of all, be a Loughborough family, but people don't feel part of that family. So I think from an LSU point of view, there needs to be more of a focus on not only the education section, but also postgraduates, because unfortunately, there is now no longer a postgraduate executive officer. I can't say I'm entirely familiar with the reasons why, but that just, from that point on, it doesn't speak volumes of LSU being representative of postgraduates when they're getting rid of an elected position that literally represents that community. So I think it's something that if I'm elected, I will work with the rest of the exec team and within my own remit as well, ensure that postgrads are represented, they have access to the schemes and the sections at LSU, because that's mainly what that's some of the things that postgrads do feel like they're being neglected in terms of LSU's priorities and their sort of focus on undergrads. It's time to, I feel, be more inclusive and be more progressive in terms of the offer.
Sure. Now, Tom, you may have heard from the last interview, but we did a quick lightning round with Elle, so we're going to try that again.
I don't think I heard
with
this,
you.
but I'm ready.
You're in luck. Get ready. So,
Let's have it.
naan bread or poppadoms?
Naan bread.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Pringles or Walkers?
Walkers.
And finally, which Mario Kart character do you play as?
I play as Yoshi. It's the best one.
But actually, before you even go to finally, like on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think? You know, how much do you love your course?
I love my course. I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Room for improvement.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to
No worries.
seeing what you've got in the rest of the week.
No worries.
So, As we know, voting opened earlier today, but if you're unfamiliar on how to vote, here, take a look at this quick graphic.
So, what is STV? STV stands for Single Transferable Vote and is the voting system that the exec elections will be working under. Normally in elections you'd vote under a first-past-the-post system for an individual candidate by putting an X by their name. The exec election works on the STV system, so when you log into lsu.co.uk/exec elections, you will be presented with a list of candidates running for each role. You can rank as many or as few candidates as you wish. Under the first-past-the-post system, the candidate with the most votes wins, even if all the other candidates' votes combined are more than 50%. However, under STV, it all starts with a quota. The quota is 50% of the total votes cast plus 1. If no candidate reaches the quota in the first round, then the least popular candidate is eliminated, and their votes are redistributed based on their voters' second choices. This process will continue until the candidate reaches the quota and is elected. Although remember, RON, which stands for Reopen the Nominations, is also an option. Voting opens on 9 AM Tuesday, the 11th of May, and be sure to follow LSU Media on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for all our exec elections coverage.
Alright guys, welcome back, and it's been a lovely show. We've had fun, absolute fun here in the studio. So tomorrow we're going to be having two positions here. We're going to be having the RAG and vice presidential candidates, and you don't want to miss those interviews. So it's been a pleasure. I've had absolute fun doing this with you.
It's been a pleasure to have you. It's been great fun.
Great fun. So over to you, Sam.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, voting has opened and your vote does count.
Yes, it does.
But from all of us at LSU Media, thank you very much and have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.